Before we do, let me just play this clip. We had mentioned earlier when we were talking to Digby about the this bizarre situation we have. I mean, among all the other bizarre situations of states forming pacts to basically protect themselves from the malfeasance and the misfeasance of our federal government. And in this instance, we're really talking about malfeasance. I mean, Larry Hogan, who I do not terribly appreciate as a governor, but in this day and age, better than other Republican governors, is on with Bob Costas on Washington Post Live. His wife, I believe, was from South Korea, or at least, at the very least, had connections in South Korea. So they were able to get tests from South Korea to administer in Maryland, and contemplate the fact that this question could even be asked and this response given in any era that didn't involve, I guess, I don't know, the Civil War. Here is Larry Hogan on with Bob Costas.
But based on my own reporting, you had some concerns about whether the feds would seize these tests when you brought them over from South Korea. Is that true? Were you concerned that the federal government would try to take those tests out of your hands?
Was a little bit of a concern about trying to get these things in. It was a very complicated process. You know, we spent about 22 days and nights dealing with this whole transaction with Korea. We dealt with the Korean embassy and folks at the State Department in Korea, 8 different state agencies, and our scientists on both sides trying to, figure out these tests. And then at the last moment, I think 24 hours before, we got sign off from the FDA and Border and Customs to try to make sure that we landed this plane safely. We made sure it landed at BWI Airport instead of Dulles. So it's the first time a Korean Air passenger plane has ever landed at Baltimore Washington International Airport. We landed it there with a large contingent of Maryland National Guard and Maryland State Police because this was an enormously valuable payload. It was like Fort Knox to us because it was going to save the lives of thousands of our citizens. And there had been reports of, for example, in Massachusetts, Governor Charlie Baker told the story of his plane load that came in with masks was basically confiscated by the federal government, and he had to then get Robert Kraft, the owner of the Patriots, to fly a second mission with a private plane to try to bring some of that equipment in. There were a couple of other states that had similar stories. So we were just making sure that that was so important to us that we wanted to make sure that that plane took off from Korea safely, landed here in America safely, and that we guarded that cargo from whoever might interfere with us getting that to our folks that needed it.
The National Guard protecting tests. Is the National Guard in Maryland still protecting those tests?
They are. The National Guard and the state police are both guarding these tests at an undisclosed location. These things are being distributed. They're helping us distribute the tests. They're also helping in all kinds of other humanitarian needs. We have about 1,300 members of the Maryland National Guard who've been activated, another 800 that are kind of on standby, ready for activation within an 8-hour period. But they've been just tremendous. They're helping us distribute supplies and PPE, helping us with the distribution.
I think, we get the gist of it here. Larry Hogan's not saying that, we brought it. I mean, this stuff is like Fort Knox to us. So we had the state troopers and we had the National Guard there because we were afraid of like some type of Con Air scenario, or where we thought like there would be this paramilitary that would come in and take it. They are guarding these tests from the federal government. How effed up is this? This is insanity. And it's not like the federal government is going to go and like, well, we're going to actually responsibly distribute this. They're going to go and hand it to private enterprise so they can maximize profit on it. Like literally the federal government is like pirateers. It's insanity. This is insanity. And the insanity doesn't stop right there. I mean, just the idea that like, It would be great if blankety blank was to, I don't know, do an investigation about this or start to publicize like how problematic this is. As in blankety blank, it seems to me would be Congress. But they, A, don't perceive themselves as necessary workers. They need to show up. And B, they don't even think like, man, why bother with like a Zoom setup? I mean, Jesus, just what Kyle's been able to do with this show. Find somebody, build something. Let's get some hearings going, even if it's got to be remote. I mean, you got to be kidding me. It really is just unprecedented.
We're getting a reputation around the world as a pirate over these medical supplies too. Latin American countries have accused us of the exact same thing. It's just crazy to see it happen between the National and State Guard now.
It's nuts. It's nuts. Meanwhile, on the other side of this, Donald Trump. Do we have Donald Trump's tweet about this? Let's put up his tweet. People have been referring to this as protesting and whatnot, and everybody's made the point that if a dozen or 24 African Americans showed up to the Michigan State House, armed to the teeth, yelling at cops, that things would have gone down probably a little bit differently. But make no mistake about it. When you think about what terrorism is, where, it's one thing about protest to say we're mad and we're going to leverage our labor or our civil consent. We're going to leverage that to try and get you, our government, to change your policies. That's the way you do it in a democracy. That's what makes you a protester. Okay? But when you project that what you're going to, or what you're bringing is violence, when you threaten violence, that's not protesting. When your displays of potential violence, right? I'm going to blow up a building empty of people, but I'm going to blow up a building as a warning. I'm going to burn this down as a warning. There's going to be violence. If you don't do what I say, that's terrorism. When people show up armed to the teeth to the State House, and they're not even there. This is not about gun rights for them, right? This is about something different. That's not protest. That's terrorism. Play the clip of the protesters in Michigan. Now, you can't quite see there the guys with guns. This is not, and I want to make it clear, this is not, yeah, there we go. This is not guys protesting about, Second Amendment rights or a bill about carrying their weapons. They're there ostensibly protesting something completely different. But they're bringing weapons. Like, what are they trying to communicate with their flak jackets and their semi-automatic rifles? They're trying to communicate the potential of violence. What that is terrorism. We don't say, when somebody blows up a building, there's no people in there, that's attempted terrorism. If they're pursuing a political agenda, this is what the definition of terrorism is. They are trying to terrorize the people there, intimidate them through violence, not leveraging their labor, not leveraging their civil obedience. They are literally coming there and saying, we got these guns. We got these guns. It's a threat. It's a threat of physical violence. And so how would the president of the United States react to this? We have his tweet. The governor of Michigan should give a little and put out the fire. These are very good people, but they are angry. They want their lives back again safely. See them, talk to them, make a deal. What kind of deal? We had a deal with the people because they show up with guns? What? How about you make a deal and expand unemployment for them? They want their lives back. Why don't you make a deal and make sure that they can pay their rent or that they're not going to get in trouble for not paying their rent? What are they going to do? Shoot the virus? They're going to shoot it? They can clearly go out and about. Why don't they sit in the middle of the town square and protest and start encouraging other people to come out and risk their lives? I mean, give me a break. It really is. I mean, what are we now? 6 weeks into this? 6 weeks into this. The reality is that even in the most infected areas, New York City, it's probably no more than 10 to 20% infected. Probably no more. Rest of the country, probably 5%. So you do the math. And assuming that COVID has been in New York City since, February, 1 month, 2 months, maybe 3 months, 2 months, well over 10,000, maybe, I don't know, maybe 20,000 dead. 15% infected. You need to get to 60 or 70% in New York. And that's just assuming that you can then make that population stable, right? Like New York wouldn't be a place where people come to. I mean, you could do the math as to how long this is going to take. Around the country, it's going to take longer. And we have a national leadership that is encouraging this stuff.